This is the August 23rd, 2010 issue of United Nations Week News and Views. I'm John Kerry, and the views expressed on this program are mine alone, unless I indicate some other source. I want to talk today about the direct Middle East talks that have just been proposed to take place very shortly in early September. And my idea is that this is a step backwards, not a step forward. The statement that announced the proceedings came from the Middle East Quartet, consisting of the United Nations, the United States, the Russian Federation, and the European Union. It states, among other things, that the Quartet reaffirms their strong support for direct negotiations between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Well, right there's a built-in ambiguity, what do you mean when you say the Palestinians? Do you mean just the Palestinian Authority, or do you include the entirely separate Hamas, the group that rules the Gaza Strip and is very much at odds with the Palestinian Authority? Hamas is supposed to be bad people, but they cannot be ignored. They are in charge of the Gaza Strip, although the Israelis participate there very heavily. And the Quartet again calls on both sides to observe calm and restraint. Well, to me, the word both implies that we're talking about two parties, but there are three parties, and that fact cannot be ignored. The statement from the Quartet goes on to make various suggestions, but I don't think I'll take the time to mention other than that they express the hope for a resolution of all final status issues at the talks beginning early September, which they hope will finish in 1 year. All final status issues. Well, what are the final status issues, the principal ones? Settlements, Israeli settlements in supposedly Palestinian territories. Borders between the two future independent nations. Refugees who have fled what is now Israel in the 1940s and would like to go home, and the future of Jerusalem. Well, I say that's it's a mistake to jump at all those four issues at the same time and get talk started and tell the participants they should get done in a year. And I think this is just going to lead to trouble with haggling and anger mounting and possibly parties walking out. I suggest start with an entirely different issue, one that is seldom mentioned publicly, one that is not as sensitive, although it's sensitive enough, and that is the issue of how to share water in aquifers under the ground. That goes on both sides of the lines between Israeli-occupied and Palestinian-occupied lands. Now, this area is mostly dry, if not parched, but fresh water does flow, of course, from the headwaters of the Jordan River down into the Sea of Galilee, and from there down the Jordan River to the Dead Sea. Additional fresh water lies under the ground in these transborder aquifers. But who gets to use that water and how it is divided up are very sensitive issues. If the parties would just put aside for now those four major issues that I just mentioned and work together on the less incendiary issue of water control, they might be able to reach some measure of agreement. They might be able, for instance, to create a joint advisory committee, something with little or no authority, but a group in which both sides, or if necessary, all three sides would be represented, if there's a water issue in Gaza as well. And they could meet and from time to time map out policy for the division and use of underground water. And they might, after a while, come to realize that it is possible for them to deal with each other in a business-like way. And once they found that out, they could consider expanding the authority of their joint body. In this process, Israel and the Palestinians would be following the example, the post-war example of France and Germany, which decided, apparently, that they had got done with killing each other generation after generation and would like to make a mutually beneficial peace. Since they both deal with iron and steel, they decided, and they created in 1951 by treaty, a joint agency to exercise common market type powers over these industries, regardless of the boundary between them. Thus was born the European Coal and Steel Community, La Communauté Européenne du Charbon et de l'Acier, known by its French initials CECA, pronounced SICA. Italy and the Benelux countries joined in. The community was given certain trappings of quasi-sovereignty, a high authority, an assembly, a council, and a court of justice. But this joint apparatus was limited to control of the two original industries, coal and steel, but it expanded into broader areas of the economy when the European Common Market was created, and in time that evolved into the European Union. Now, I'm not suggesting that Israel and Palestinians should seek or should even dream about eventually having a single state. However, states side by side, even when they have a history of violent hatred and ethnic and religious antipathies, can do business in a small way, and maybe that can become a bigger way. So in the Middle East, where countries of intense hostility may rival but not exceed that between the ancient enemies of France and Germany, it might be possible for Israel and the Palestinians to begin by agreeing on some kind of mutual machinery for the control of their shared portion of that life-giving resource of water. If the two sides were to discover that doing business across ethnic and religious boundaries is possible, in small matters they might be willing to move slowly to larger areas. But that would seem to be a much more productive approach than to leap all of a sudden at the four major issues that I mentioned a few minutes ago and act with under the pressure of arbitrary deadlines. It would seem more sensible for mediation to continue with some on both sides' respect in between them, acting in the traditional manner of mediators. And Senator Mitchell, of course, had remarkable success in Northern Ireland with his Good Friday Agreement. And that method seems far more sensible than throwing enemies into the same room together and expect them to cooperate rather than contend with each other. Well, that thought brings to a close this August 23rd issue of United Nations Week, News and Views. We'll be back with the next issue. Meantime, do send along your own thoughts about these or other UN-related issues to www.unweek.blogspot.com, blogspot. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time. Bye-bye.